I am so excited about today's show. One of my favorite singers, it's Sandi Patty. I've known her, good night, since 1988. And we've been friends ever since. And I'm thrilled she's here today. And she's going to be talking about blended families. Isn't
That's
that right?
right. Yeah, she has such a unique family situation. She and her husband Don and their blended family of 8 children. There's a quote by Brene Brown that we talked about. Brene says, "Those who have a strong sense of love and belonging have the courage to be imperfect." And what Sandi does is she invites us into the story of her family, as she shows how the stories of our lives that are imperfect are then a pathway for God to redeem us, and then as we share that story for others to join in on the redemption. So I think it's pretty exciting.
It was a great conversation, and there's one seat left at the table, and it's yours. Let's join the conversation. Years ago, when you and I and Debbie Boone did something at Anderson...
Hold on, let me grab that name you just dropped.
I remember it was at Anderson University.
Yes.
And I told you that night, I said, I'm so thankful I was born in your lifetime to hear that voice. I remember I was sitting with my friend Dina at the outdoor theater in LA, that beautiful amphitheater thing.
Greek.
The Greek.
Yeah.
Where you were at it.
Yeah.
It was your concert. It was sold out. And I remember this was before I knew you, before I had my big break that you gave me.
Well, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, but let me just say that I remember thinking, I wish she knew my name.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
And here we are.
Having
dinner.
So, yeah.
That's right.
So
She knows it now.
So I'm at Estes Park. And I'm finally getting to sing at Estes Park.
Yes.
And
this was year.
1988.
Okay.
I know exactly. I can tell you what I was wearing. I see that Dallas Home is supposed to introduce me in the morning, and I want you to, because the 2 biggest stars in our world at that time were Amy Grant and Sandi Patty. There were no bigger stars. I mean, superstars, all right? And everybody else was down here, right?
Right.
So she introduces me. She doesn't know what I'm going to do. She introduces me, and I said, thank you, Amy, for that wonderful introduction.
Totally.
I said, your first album, My Father's Eyes, is still my favorite. And then I said, are y'all ready to rock and roll? They go, yeah. I said, tough, I don't do that.
I know. And in that moment, I knew. I think I wet my pants. I think I did. I've never heard such smart comedy. It was just the most brilliant 10 minutes I've ever seen in my whole life.
So you are retiring.
Well, slash.
You know, I am.
You are. Farewell tour's going good, huh?
It's done.
It's done.
Farewell.
You're not going to do like Sharon, have an adios tour, and
I
I'll
am
see
not.
you later tour,
I
and
am
we'll be back in a
not.
minute tour?
I'm not.
No, you're done.
I'm done. I mean, music has always been such a huge part of my life. There's no way I cannot do music.
No.
But being on the road, it just looks very different on a 62-year-old body than on a 30-year-old body.
Around when we went to the concert tours, when my parents and I came to that, and you see this picture, to me, this is the story of redemption that's happening throughout your family. But you see you, your husband Don, you see one of Don's girls, you see your twins, you see a Katie daughter-in-law, right? So all this literally up on stage, singing together.
Because you blended a family.
I mean, blendedness, right?
And
in front of
Anna,
us.
who runs the business, and then, you know, road manager's son,
Right, Don,
and,
right.
you know, we,
The family corporation.
we just employ them all.
So what a friend of mine yesterday, in fact, and they're in their they're a little older than me, in their 60s probably. They recently married. Her husband passed away. He went through a divorce, but they married. And he said if he had known, he said the hardest thing he's ever been through in his life.
You know, blending a family, there's nothing easy about it. Nothing. And so some of the things that Don and I have been really fortunate in the last few years to be able to share with a lot of couples is not out of how we did it right.
Right.
It's how we messed up. And please, if you're gonna make a mistake, make a new one, but don't make this one.
Okay.
You know? But every blended family, number one, you have to start here, is born out of loss. And you just have to let that sink in. Every blended family is born out of loss. So whether there's been a death of a spouse, parent, or whether there's been a divorce, there's a loss. That is just a reality. That doesn't mean it's set up to fail, but you do have to start there.
It's a recognition.
Yes, you just have to own that. And I think the second thing is you have to keep the foundational relationship strong. You're the only ones in the whole mess that chose it. Nobody else did.
Write that down.
Right? You're the only ones in this whole mess that chose it.
Oh, that's good.
So you've got to foster that, and you've got to nurture that relationship. And we just tried to establish date night once a week. And I think in your second marriage, you have to work harder than you did in your first. I don't know. It's just, you just have to.
Is there fear? Is that from a fear thing?
No,
or?
it's from, I think, an experience thing. Nothing magical happens when you say, I do.
Right.
And all the stars align and all the baggage is unpacked and understood. It's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
And
let me ask you this:
yeah.
what kind of insecurities in your children does it breed when their parents stop loving each other? Does it, in some way, make them feel like it could happen to them too? Is that part of it?
You know, that's a very interesting question. It has made them look at marriage much more seriously.
Sure.
Knowing this could happen.
Yeah. Because they know you, and they know their father, and they know Don, and they're going, these are people we love, we trust, we see their relationship with God's fostered, and yet here it was, present.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we chose to do early on is to be as age appropriately honest with them. That there was not a question that they couldn't ask that we wouldn't answer somehow. And to be real honest, the questions have gotten deeper as they get older.
Okay. And even as they get married?
And as they get married, it's like, you know what? I'm not saying but I understand differently than I did before. It's hard work.
How did coming from the Splendid family impact before you were married, now that you're married, now that you're a mom?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yes. I think I chose not to let people close for a very long time. And that was with my family, that was in friendships, that was in relationships. My husband was my first serious relationship, and we were 24 when we started dating. And I just kind of became very self-reliant, which is not a bad thing.
Sure.
But it was from an unhealthy place. He gave me a lot of space to process how scared I was of marriage because of my lens. I was scared of being hurt, and I was scared of hurting. Both were equally strong in me, and I could see the capacity of both within me, which we all have. And I think maybe it's a good thing to come to terms with that. But it was paralyzing to me. And on the night we got engaged, he set up this elaborate, beautiful, amazing engagement, the most perfect thing. And I realized finally what's happening. And I said, I'm not ready to get engaged. I'm not ready to get engaged. And he said, yes, you are.
You said that out loud?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I said, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And he said, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I almost said, I almost said no, not because I was scared of him. I knew he's amazing, and I trust him completely, and I do want to spend my life with him. So I wasn't scared of him, and I had peace about him. I was so terrified of marriage. My husband's parents met and married in 12 days and are still together to this day. So we had just very different lenses that we walked into.
So he's
marriage.
totally trusting.
So he's like, this is great, this is great. Why don't we just get married now? And I'm like, But I remember finally on my wedding day, I woke up and realized okay, this is it. But I remember feeling this delight from the Lord because I felt this for me in my story and my fears, this redemption in some ways. And honesty, I know what I'm getting into. I have no rose-colored glasses. Right. But seeing that actually can be a benefit instead of a crippling thing.
Sure. Well, and I think what's beautiful about that is what we realize is we're all, the journey to healing, we're not whole.
Yes.
We're not going to be whole on this side of life.
Yes.
So that's a continual journey.
Yes.
And that's where you can begin to relate, no matter what your story is, no matter what your parents' story is, no matter what my story is, or someone else's. That's our relating point. As if we're surrendered to, I think, to God
Yeah.
through this life, then it's a continual healing, process that will never end.
Absolutely.
I love this song so much. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, and just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. And I'm so glad that I've learned to trust him. Precious Jesus, Savior, friend. And I know that thou art with me, will be with me to the very end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Sing, oh, for grace. Oh, for grace to trust him more.
Dinner Conversations is presented by Project Beautiful.
A passionate community committed to saving innocent lives from the modern day terrors of slavery. Project Beautiful has intercepted over 12,000 people from the front lines of sex trafficking, and today you can partner with us and help.
So will you partner with Andrew and me? Go to projectbeautiful.org/dinner conversations for more information.
If we don't help, who will? Project Beautiful, because every life is beautiful and worth fighting for. But y'all created a name. This is what Anna was telling me about it the other day.
Because on vacation, Don would go, hey, Pestilence family, let's go. You know, and then finally the Helvering kids go, I'm sorry, we are not Pestilences.
Oh.
And but it sparked a conversation that, you know what, that's true.
Yeah.
So we need to address that. So at first we thought, well, what if, just for fun, we combined our names, like took a piece of here. Yeah. So we took H-E-L from Helvering, P from Patty, and L-I-S from Pestless. But that was helpless. And that just felt a little bit too real. You know, it just felt too soon.
That's funny.
But so then we thought, okay, let's just put all the letters of all the last names in like a paper bag, and we drew them out one at a time, and whatever order they came out in, that would be like our fictitious name.
Family name.
Which came out Ganissala-Pivy.
Ganissala-Pivy?
Very well.
Nice, yeah.
Ganissala-Pivy. But I think what it has said is that we all have a place and we all matter. And some of those realizations we came to in a hard way, because the kids would say, you know what, that's not my name. Well, you know what, that's true.
Does it ever feel like, okay, here's this kind of hump, and we're never going to get over it because no one's ever going to have the same last name. No one ever is going to be all biologically related or whatever. Did you and Don ever feel defeated by that, possibility or fact?
Yeah, you hope that you can create a safe enough space that conversations can happen that will lead you to new things.
Brilliant.
You hope. That's the best you can do. You know, I say hope, and I mean prayer and discernment and thoughtfulness, all that.
But you're not going to control it, right?
You're not going to control that. And I'll tell you something. This happened probably 4 or 5 years ago. And so Don and I have been married now 22 years. 22.
Wow.
We're suddenly those people now that people come to. Like, when did that happen?
For advice? Well, why not?
We can tell you what we did wrong. Don't do that. And this happened on one of the cruises I was hosting. And it happened to be around Don's birthday. And so, you know, all the waiters came over and, like, you know, celebrated the crazy birthday. And all of our family was around. And I realized I was hesitating to celebrate him in front of my kids, because I never, ever wanted them to think that I'd forgotten what it cost them. But then I realized, you know what? I'm also a wife. And if I don't celebrate him, someone's gonna.
Wow. Yeah.
So I need to figure out how to celebrate him in front of the kids.
Yeah.
So I set out on a mission, and it took me a year to accomplish. But I wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with each of my kids where there was no time constraint, where it could go as short or as long as it needed to go, and say to them, I don't ever want you to think for 1 minute that I've forgotten what it has cost you. Wow. But I love, whether it was Don's kids, I love your dad. Like, he is my best friend. And I want and need to celebrate us. And I've always said, if you need to pick up this conversation at any time, then let's do that. But that has freed me to be able to celebrate my husband, because that is important.
And you do it well.
And it hasn't in
That
turn.
Reverend, what do you call him, Reverend Don?
Yeah, Rev
Don.
Don.
That's in turn freed them up, don't you think? Even though they may not have thought that at first.
You know, the comments from each of them, one of the kids said, well, of course we know that.
Yeah.
One of them said, Mom, if you don't move on, how are we supposed to?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was a very
And how are they then to
freeing-
celebrate you if you can't celebrate
Right.
your love?
Right. And I think that's one of the foundations we tried to establish in our blended family, is even if it's crazy, let's talk about it. But I think now we can converse, and the kids especially are really close.
Are they?
They
That's
really
great.
are.
It's pretty
and
amazing to see them
It
together.
is.
Let's listen to her. help
Yes, they refer to us as step parents,
Okay.
but they refer to each other as siblings.
Cool.
Good,
Cool.
good.
But they'll say to us now, our parents.
Huh.
And that's been a new thing.
Yeah. When you think about all those different personalities under one roof, and then on top of that, you have this personality that would like a little space to feel her feelings,
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
someone to hear those
Yes.
feelings when you need it. Was it ever hard, especially with your biological siblings, did some of them seem a little bit more go with the flow kind of thing?
Yeah.
And were you like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just run into this full force?
Yes, absolutely. Have you read all my diaries? No. My mom told me a story later. After I started doing some work and going to counseling, and when I first moved to Nashville almost 9-10 years ago, I had the incredible privilege of doing some very intense counseling with Al Andrews, actually. In the midst of that work, I was processing some things with Mom, and I remember having a conversation with her, which was so healing for our relationship, that just said, I need to have a conversation, because I can feel all my feels, I also feel all your feels, right? So sometimes I feel like, oh, I can't say that because then that's gonna be taken that way.
Sure.
And so I remember calling her on the phone after a counseling session and said, I just need to have a conversation as the 4-year-old girl who's really sad about things that happened. And she just let me talk. She heard me and she let me be seen, and it was so powerful in so many ways. She said that she remembers when I was just 4, when they got divorced, and my mom and dad sat us down and told us that they were getting divorced and tried to explain it however you can to a
Sure.
4-year-old.
Yeah.
And she said, I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And then she said, just at some point that day, I just stopped. And she didn't see me cry for like years. Because I think as a 4-year-old, I realized, ooh, that pain is so great to like open yourself up. And I think once I reopened some of those things that were very painful at first, that then allowed some work to begin. But that was my journey, and my siblings had very different ones. Some of them were more able to go with the flow, and their work looks a little bit different. Sometimes it was them having permission to stop and say, oh wait, this did affect me, and
Yeah.
have that conversation.
Right.
You know, and for us to all see that it did affect us, just as every person's story affects them.
Of course.
No matter what they've walked
Right.
through.
Have you worked with blended families?
I have.
What is the biggest hurdle they have to face when you blend a family?
Well, you know, it's really interesting because let's say there's 6 people in a blended family, 6 kids. 3 kids in this one, 3 kids in this one, whatever. When they come together, everybody's been through a trauma. But if I met with each of those kids individually, I would hear a different story. Because everybody experiences a different story. My sister and I grew up in the same family, and we have a bit of a different story the way we experienced our family. The way I would work with people is just not assume, well, if you're in a blended family, this, and this happens.
Yeah.
And therefore that's what you're dealing with. But what I'd rather do is go, no, each person, including the parents, lived a different story.
And they see that story through their own grid.
Through their own grid, which is influences by the things in their own life. One of the big things we want to do with everybody that comes in is almost treat them like a novel that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a number of chapters, because I feel like people need to know their story, or their story will live them.
When we were looking for a sponsor for our program, we thought not only do we want a sponsor, we want some sponsor that is doing something eternal. And what I love about Project Beautiful, well, is the interception. It's about sex trafficking. Who knew? In our day and age, you still had to worry about sex trafficking.
About slavery.
And slavery. Well, Project Beautiful is in the ministry of intercepting those before they get into sex trafficking, which is what I love that.
Right.
And they'll go to like airports and they watch, and they're in cahoots with of course the government and the police. But then they go in there and they know what to look for, and they'll flash a card. I just learned all this myself. They flash a card and they ask a few questions and they catch those sons of guns, and they arrest the trafficker, save the trafficked, and bring them home.
They do, right? They monitor, so that's how they
Yeah.
help intercept them.
Yeah, and they know the red flags
Right.
to watch for.
And then the interception begins. So Project Beautiful steps in. When those red flags are raised and they realize this is what's going down, they then step in to stop
Yes.
the trafficking before the slavery
Get the
begins.
trafficker in the jail and get the children home.
And probably the ultimate thing, they're educating them in the gospel, part of the bringing home
Absolutely.
process. So they're working in every angle. I consider it this really kind of holistic way to be a part of ending modern day slavery, you know.
Wonderful.
We love it. We would like you to love it too.
$30 a month, you will save 3 people, 3 lives a year from sex trafficking, slavery. $30 a month, $40 a month, you save 4.
Yeah, it's easy math, and it's obviously a calling that feels compelling to us.
Won't you join Andrew and me? Go to projectbeautiful.org/dinner conversations.
Find out more. We've got a special gift for you there just because of how important this is to us.
If we don't help, who will? Project Beautiful, because every life is beautiful and worth fighting for.
It's
So you have
continuous.
8 total.
8 total.
And
so
how
when
many?
we got married, I had 4.
You had 4.
Anna, John, Jen, and Aaron.
Got it.
Don had 3, Donnie, Allie, and Molly.
Got it.
And then we adopted our youngest one, Sam. So we own him jointly.
Yeah, and we own it. So do you like all of your kids?
I am so for them.
Really?
And I want them to know that.
And I know that might be an odd question, but you know, you can
Yeah.
love a kid and not
There-
always like them.
Right. There are kids who've maybe are taking the long way home, you know? And there are kids that have taken a little bit shorter route. And so the ones who are taking the long way home, it's hard to know how to support them sometimes in decisions that are hard. And so it's just a journey to sort of let them feel.
Is it you want to fix it?
I just want them to know, just do this and you're gonna be
Or
fine.
do this, and it will result in this.
But
you know.
can I tell you this? And I actually have not shared this with anybody except my kids. So I haven't got it all figured out yet in my head. But I've been very convicted as a mom in some of the choices that I make, particularly around food. And yet I want to say to some of my kids who are taking a long way home, all you need to do is, because that looks easy to me,
Right.
Yep.
but that's not my struggle. And just in the last 2 weeks, God has just kind of said to me, look, it's this simple. You put less calories in your body than you burn, you're gonna lose weight. That math is not gonna change. It's one of my universal principles. And I have for 62 years wanted to do different math. And so in fasting for my children, my fast is not away from something, but it's towards something. And that is 6 things of protein, 5 starches, because I can't tell my other kids that I know it's hard, but it's worth it.
Wow.
If I have not surrendered this in my life, it's a new place it's so brand new, like I have blisters from it, you know.
Yeah.
It's so
Well,
brand
you
new.
know, we never heard of any sermons on gluttony. I
No,
didn't.
no.
And our preachers were all fat.
Right?
You know?
I know.
They're all going to give the Lord a challenge in the rapture. I mean, because they're so heavy.
Right?
No, seriously.
no,
but
I
I
know.
did not know till I went to college gluttony was a sin.
Yes, yes.
And that's all we did was eat and go to
Thank
church.
you.
yeah.
And
Dinners on the ground.
yes, and such good dinners.
So good.
But
You know what's cool? I want to say this. How cool that you are coming to that realization and then applying that to your relationships with your kids, because then guess what? I mean, for those taking the long way home, well, hey, mom's right here shoulder to shoulder with us.
yes,
I think as kids, as adult children with our parents, as they are still learning things about themselves and then presenting those to us willingly as well, man, that is such a convicting thing for me, because it's like, okay, so mom and dad get to commune together.
Yeah.
They're not controlling. They're
Yeah.
not they don't hold all the answers, you know. We're all
right.
looking up.
You know, my dad, who's 84, just said to me the other day, he said, I wish I had known, really in a sense, what a weak man I was growing up.
Really?
He said, because knowing that at 84 has made me a stronger man. And he's 84, and it's just what you just said.
He's
and
still learning.
Still growing.
yes,
and
still learning and still growing.
And alive.
And yes.
I'm sure there were struggling times when you were struggling, and you can't let the kids know you're struggling. How do you parent them when you are also struggling?
Well, actually, my wife and I decided that we were going to let them know when we were struggling.
Oh, really?
And age appropriately, we might let them know what we were struggling with. But early on, because they know you're struggling.
And they need to know you're human.
They know that you're sad. They know
Yeah.
that you're upset.
Okay.
And so I remember a time when we told our kid, who was probably 8, I said, Mommy and I are having an argument like you and your brother have, and it's going to take a while to get through, but we're going to be okay, but that's why things are a little tense. And he went, okay. You know?
Wow.
But it kind of put words to what he was feeling.
That's cool.
Again, as they got older, we might say, this is what we're struggling with. And they might go, oh, okay. Because I want to model for them
Brilliant.
that it's okay for them to struggle.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, you know, and I
How are
think,
they going to know how to handle it when they are?
exactly. And one of the things that I think that I struggled with as a parent is that I believe that maybe they can not have to struggle as much. It's like,
It's all part of it.
I want a shortcut. I want them to be fixed.
Yeah.
But
There are no shortcuts.
there aren't. I really wish there were, Mark. I really wish there were, but they're not.
But it's
So-
not that long, 80 years. You
I
know,
know.
You think
Yeah.
compared to eternity?
You
I
know.
mean, this is just boot camp. That's all this is.
Isn't that true? And yet, it's a boot camp that's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, we invite our sons into it, and I feel like that's been helpful to us, because then they're not, when they come up against it, when it hits them in the face, they're not surprised like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this happens? I go, yeah,
Yeah.
people betray you. Things hurt.
Mhm.
Bad things happen, and it stings. People get mad at one another, and even if they love each other.
So, going back to you having conversations with your children through all the years, and you and Don saying this table, you know, we talk here, we ask questions, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a foundation, a helpful one, and could be and should be for
Yes.
any family,
Yes.
right? Because there are families that don't talk,
Right.
That have never had divorce or remarriage,
Right.
or
And you don't know how to start the conversation. Because you don't start the conversation with, so I know you made a really bad choice, life-altering choice last week. Should we talk about it? You can't start there.
Yeah.
What you do is you start when they're little. And so when the kids were little, we'd have dinner and we'd go around the table and say, tell me your high, low for the day. What was good about the day? What was hard about the day?
Interesting.
And so, like, sometimes it was, well, recess was extra long. That was the high. And we had green beans for lunch. That was the low. But what you're setting the table for conversation.
Right.
So that when the high lows get harder, you've already established the
Yeah,
conversation.
you can't start that in their teens.
No, you can't. And listen to this. My mother, she knew she was loved, but she wasn't told the words a whole lot by her parents. And her biggest fear was when she had children, she was not going to be able to say, I love you.
wow.
So when we were younger, this makes me cry. So when we were little, she told me this just a number of years ago. She would go in our rooms when we were asleep, and she would practice saying our name, I love you.
Oh.
She would practice that. So when the time came that we could hear it,
Yeah.
she had practiced it. Now that is just an amazing life lesson
is
for
so
me.
sweet.
That even if it's hard for us, let's
Yes.
practice it.
Yes, and to know that
Nobody
she wasn't
gets
set
it.
up for that.
She wasn't set up
but
for
yet
that.
she chose.
Yes,
That we can't actually choose something
which is
that
amazing
not,
because if people who know my mother, she says I love you to everyone.
Yeah.
she's well rehearsed
She got used to it.
Right, but to hear that context was so sweet that, you know, what you
Isn't that
don't know,
something?
learn it.
Yeah.
Learn
Well,
it.
you know, my dad, same thing. His parents never hugged him. He got on a train, leaving to college. He sees his best friend and his father embrace. All right?
Right.
And he goes, that just blew me away.
Wow.
And he decided from that moment on he would hug his parents. Every time he saw
He
them,
decided.
He decided. And he
Wow.
would grab his, my grandparents were like Mom, Pa Kettle. Do you remember Mom, Pa? You won't, but she was a big, tall, German, busty woman, and he was a little shrimp of
Yeah.
a man. Well, that was my grandparent.
Oh.
And my dad would hug him and say, I love you, Mama. And she'd stand there. You know,
Like that takes me back to when you were saying that now people are coming to you and Dawn for advice, and you're like, what? But what a gift, right? Because through y'all's decisions, choices, when you say that's a result of that people, is that a result of that, or what? I don't know. What goes through your mind when you think, wow, we are now able to help someone else?
Well, I think I'm so glad God makes all things new. Something new, like
Yeah.
Ganissalapivy, which
Yeah.
is the silliest.
Yeah.
But out of all
new.
that,
Not
made
just
something
patched it.
new. And so I do feel like Don and I were willing to do the work. And we were willing to put ourselves under some, counsel and some leadership for a while. And I think those pieces are really important too. But now we get an opportunity to be that for other people, and them knowing our story, because you can Google it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's just there,
there.
forever.
right.
But I think it does allow people to be freer with what they tell us, because they can't shock us.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what else? What else? And so that's why we have to tell our stories to each other.
Right.
So out of brokenness, I think God can do just some miraculous things.
Show your scars.
The floodgates of communion.
I
It's
love
like,
that.
We're all at the same
Don't
table.
block my shot.
I got a quote for you. I got to read this.
Okay.
Okay. It's Brene Brown. So,
Love it.
Imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we're all in this together. The irony is that we attempt to disown our difficult stories to appear whole or more acceptable. But our wholeness, even our wholeheartedness, actually depends on the integration of all of our experiences, including the falls. It feels like you guys are pointing us in a direction of hope, one that exposes brokenness, but
Yeah.
also then therefore exposes grace.
Yes.
So have you
Yes.
felt that kind of spiritual impact? It could be just personally, like you and your relationship with God, or even as you communicate to people from a spiritual platform,
Yes.
like talking about spiritual things.
At first, it was hard, I think, to share the brokenness. But when I began to see, like you said, people coming up and going, that happened to me, or, I was abused too when I was younger, and whispering it, and it's like all of a sudden it lets you be more brave. So the first thing I want to be is just maybe help people put words to some brokenness in their own life. It's hard to speak out of the rawness that you're going through, unless you're, of course, Mark Lowry. And then,
You just let it out.
because there's a difference between being emotional and then just having feelings about what has happened. And it's hard to speak out of a super raw emotional place. But as I began to be encouraged to talk about it, it just was amazing, the freedom that came in me. Because once you speak it out, it no longer has hold on you, right?
The cloud lifts.
Yes, and it offers an invitation to others to do the same, to be brave and to take that first step. It's like, God, only you could do something like this. Only you. So we just bring all of our stuff. We just bring it and allow him to reframe it and reshape it and remold it. And it's really amazing.
It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
the nest is empty.
Honey,
Now you
I
run
know our
naked through the
children
house.
well.
Well,
I know our children, they worry so.
Yeah.
Oh, bless their
can't get over it,
hearts.
right?
They're so tired. They're so lonely. It's awesome. When you got up there.
oh, and also what I did the night before, when I put Dee Dee's earrings on and walked up to her. Dee Dee had the oldham had these big, huge earrings, and I just got this in my head. I would do anything that day. And so I picked up the earrings, put them on, and walked up and said, "Hi, Sandy, I'm Mark Lowry." And after a few more surgeries, they say I look just like you. Do you not remember that?
I don't.
You were sitting. Oh, for grace to trust Him more. Let's get a bus.
No, I'm retired.